Welcome, Darklings, to the Nasty and Neurotic podcast, episode number 1. Welcome to the Creep Show. If you are watching on YouTube currently, obviously you're not going to see my face or what I look like. And if you're listening on SoundCloud, well, you're never going to see what I look like unless you go to my Instagram. Anyhow, I wanted to start off by introducing you to myself, whoever might be watching this. Who knows? I don't. But I'm Joy. Currently, my husband's at work, so he's not going to be here with me today. But I guess I just wanted to start out by talking about why I wanted to start a podcast and a little bit why I'm attracted to more of the, I don't even know what to call it, horror, dark side, dark stuff. I guess I hate the phrase edgy and I hate the phrase alternative, but like kind of the goth stuff, you know, it's a very blanket term, but I think it seems to be the most fitting for what I guess I'm into. I don't know, it's hard to explain. But I grew up in a very, very small town in the Midwest, and you know, a lot of the culture surrounding the town that I grew up in is not geared towards people who may have a little bit different than normal tastes. And what I mean by that is it's very suburbia, you know, dad goes to work, mom stays at home. It's kind of a hick town, you know? And it's not necessarily a bad thing. In my case, I don't consider it a bad thing. I consider it a very boring thing. So that, I guess I was just looking for something a little bit more. And I can distinctly remember where I started to get more fascinated by maybe a little bit more creepier stuff, like horror stuff, darker books, like Goosebumps. I read a lot as a kid. That's not what first introduced me, though. And it's going to maybe not make a whole lot of sense to a lot of people. But I watched wrestling as a very young child, and that's because I spent a lot of time with my brother. My brother is 7 years older than me. But he introduced me a lot to kind of what he was into, because he would babysit me all the time, obviously, older brother. But I remember watching The Undertaker, actually, and his entrance, and I just remember being so in awe of how cool it was and how different it was. And it was just unlike anything I had ever seen. So I really think that that's kind of what started my whole fascination with kind of this other subculture that when I was 5, I didn't know what culture was as subcultures or goth or normal. I just, you know, I was just watching a program with my brother. But like I said, I just remember being so taken aback by how cool it was. Also at that time, I was listening to probably not great music for a 5-year-old to be listening to be quite honest. But again, because I was raised by my brother, it was just, it's who I was. So, you know, we listened to a lot of Nirvana, obviously. I was born in the early 90s, so I remember listening to a lot of Nirvana, a lot of Bush, a lot of Metallica, which, you know, we'll probably get into in a different episode because we'll get into that later about Metallica. But I've always been into that heavier kind of sound, that heavier look. And even going back to wrestling, actually, the Hardy Boys, I remember that style with the fishnet tops and the trip pants. I remember those being so cool as a kid, and I just wanted that. I wanted that. And it probably is a little bit because of my grandmother too. She unfortunately passed before I was born, but her favorite movies were horror movies. I mean, she loved true crime. Which I do as well. She loved Alfred Hitchcock, which I do to this day. I may not agree with who he is as a person, but I do believe his movies are incredible. It's weird to me how I can be so connected to her in that way without ever actually meeting her, which is really cool. And we're into all the same things, music, movies, that kind of darker stuff I think is really cool. But that's kind of how I got introduced to a different culture, a different way of life, and it's just completely encompassed me as a person and who I am and how I think and what I enjoy and what I like to surround myself with. I love spiders and bats and old Victorian dilapidated houses and fog and late nights and the moon and the stars in the sky. And I guess it might be because I'm a Scorpio too, if you follow along with astrology at all. That can be definitely a characteristic of being a Scorpio, is being a little bit more mysterious. I also think part of it is not wanting to be like everybody else, especially in the town that I grew up in. It was very much, especially in high school, everybody wears Hollister and just stuff like that, and you walk around maybe in a black t-shirt, black band shirt or something, and not wearing love pink and a Hollister, and it's not wanting to be like that. And of course in high school it was always about not wanting to conform, not wanting to be like the normies. I don't like that term, conforming, because it's just so overused and so bleh. Like it just, that phrase annoys me. Like, I just don't want to conform. It's annoying, right? And maybe I'm alone in that, but I think a lot of it, of course, is the angsty teenager stuff. But it's hard to only blame it on that, because sure, it might have been a calling to me when I was an angsty teenager as well as an angsty child, I guess. But when it still holds so much special meaning to me, as far as like horror movies and Edgar Allan Poe and H.P. Lovecraft, all that kind of stuff, it's just been a part of me for so long that it's like, it's hard to say that, I'm just an angsty adult now. It's just part of who I am, and I'm very happy that it's part of who I am, and I'm very proud of that. And I think it's really cool not to just walk around taking things as face value and looking at the deeper meaning and the deeper side, a different side of life, I guess you could call it. But like I said, it's hard to blame it on that. But anyway, I'm getting off topic. I knew it was going to happen. It was bound to happen. But what spikes my curiosity and what I would like to know, just because it's me sitting here in front of my computer with a microphone. My husband, like I said, is not home right now, so I can't get his opinion, but I'd like to know why people are attracted to that side of culture, of life, of whatever you might want to call it, because I certainly don't know correct terms or correct words. I don't know. I'm just a lady sitting at a computer. This is nothing, big. I'm just a random person. I'm not an expert. I'm not an expert on anything, really. I'm certainly not an expert on the quote unquote goth culture, like by any means, or a quote unquote dark culture or alternative culture or anything. I'm not an expert on anything. I just know I really enjoy that kind of stuff, and wanted to create something where I could speak to people and why maybe they are interested in the same things as I am, because there's not a whole lot of people surrounding me who are. And I want to get people's opinions on why do we enjoy being frightened? It's always something that's been in the back of my head, like trying to find something that will spook me or get my heart racing or frighten me in any form of the word. I haven't been frightened at a horror movie in quite some time. I guess I haven't really been on top of the new horror movies that come out. I do know, however, and I'm probably going to get a lot of flack for this, I will not watch It. It, meaning the Stephen King film, It. Not horror, because I love horror, but I like a different kind of horror. And the movie, is a whole other thing, because I have a really bad experience with clowns. I'm sure everybody's got, a similar story to that, where they just, there's a reason why they hate something and they just will never go towards it. I'll eventually watch it. Like, I'll eventually cave in and watch the movie It. But at this current time, I hate clowns. I'm not doing it. I don't want to be that scared. I just want something that gets the heart racing, the heart pumping, that kind of thing. I'm trying to remember the last movie I got genuinely terrified at, and I can't really think of one. There's always the jump scares, which I'm not a super huge fan of, because most of the time you can see them coming and that kind of thing. But my husband and I just watched A Quiet Place. It came out earlier this year, I believe. I don't know the month of 2018, but I know it came out this year, 2018. And we just rented it, and it's, I don't know what about it was just so not scary. And, we've had conversations about it since we've watched it, and my biggest thing was that it just didn't make sense to me. There's horror movies that delve into that. And if you haven't watched A Quiet Place, I'll try not to spoil anything. But it, in my opinion, it went a little bit too far into the sci-fi area. I guess you could call it sci-fi-ish or unknown. It's just the creatures in the film were just a little bit too far out of the reality realm. I really like movies that can play that role of being a horror flick and something that's still unnatural, but that could still totally happen. The plotline in A Quiet Place was just, it went too far out of the realm of reality. Like, when watching it, I kept thinking to myself, this would never happen. This could never happen. It was that, like, I'm not scared of it because I know that would never happen. They didn't explain a whole lot of the prior as to how the world got the way it did. Which I probably, in my opinion, it could have helped the plot line a whole lot more, is if we had a reason why things were that way. I'm sure if you've seen A Quiet Place, you're probably following me, but if you haven't, I'm probably confusing the crap out of you, which I apologize for. But I mean, it was a good overall movie. I just, like I said, the thoughts in the back of my head were always, this could never happen, so it's not scary to me, And I guess taking it back to Alfred Hitchcock, the birds, I don't know how that would ever happen either, but I mean, it could in reality. And that's why I love Psycho so much, because it plays with the mind, You know, it screws with your mind, because that mental illness is a thing that it does happen, and it's scary, and it's scary for the people surrounding, and it's scary for the person it's happening to. And just that side, it's crazy. And I think that's why it's, in my opinion, one of the best horror movies. It may not be your classical, like, gore, guts, monster horror. It's more thriller horror, which is my particular favorite kind of horror. Is more of a thriller, kind of messes with your mind and makes you think more. Of course, I love gore and stuff too. I mean, that's just entertaining to me. It's just fascinating to watch. It's not necessarily a mind opener for me. Like all the Saw movies, those are really screwed up movies, but they're more for the gore scenes, like the big scenes, you know, if you follow me at all. But I wanted to ask your opinion on why do you like horror movies? Why do you think humans in general like being scared? Why do we like getting our blood pumping so much, and why? For me, I mean, personally, I suffer with anxiety, and that's always weird to me too, because my heart always races fast. So why do I want to get it racing faster? Or is it just because we need to be taken out of our own reality and put in another reality that just makes us think a little bit deeper? I don't know. You let me know in the comments why you like being terrified or frightened, or why you like having your adrenaline get kicked up. If you know more about adrenaline than me, please let me know. Because I don't know. Like I said, I'm not an expert in absolutely anything. I just like talking about horror movies and dark things, I guess. I don't know. But I think that's why I'm going to end this here. Stay tuned for more episodes. Of course, I'm going to have my husband come in, and we'll talk about why he likes horror and why he likes dark side of things too, because he's the only one in this town that I found that who also likes kind of that darker themed subculture crap. I don't know, whatever you want to call it. Anyway, leave me a comment and letting me know why you like to get frightened, and we'll see you in the next episode. Thanks for tuning in.